Deep down in the wells of your soul, remove all them blockages, cause it's messing up your flow. Tap into that place, baptize your face. Time to let that shit go, cause it's all now, it's all now. Time to let that shit go now, you can grow now. Deuce, deuce, then deuce, I release it. Permission for healing it, you've been giving it, supply infinite. You feel better when you start giving it. God gave life, but you ain't living it. Shift your feeling, it's real. All I might feel, you need that release, that breeze up. Chill, holding on heavy, your mind might lie. Tell you that the pain is real. It's the power you provide, and I take that back and guard it close. Nobody deserve it, don't let it go. Do yourself a service, love your, don't wait before they go hate. Anchor your fate, take the power back that you give away, and take the power up, stand firm, don't sway. The most high lift up every day, deep down in the wells of your soul. Remove all them blockages, cause it's messing up your flow. Tap into that place, wash away all the old. Sanitize this space, baptize your face. Time to let that shit go, cause it's old now, it's old now. Time to let that shit go now, you can grow now. Deuce, deuce, then deuce, I release it. I'm a leech and I breathe in the breach of your mind. I be looking for the perfect opportunity and find it. I forever be grinding. I'm the one who roaming through the hood and remind him how his partner got silence, so he can keep it with him every time. I instigate dying, give inspiration so they put it to the song and they rhyming. Simple Simon's miming what I tell them in the conscious, performing at the live at the concert. Fans in the stands, they're my converts. I'm the captain of the grudges. Disable your ability for loving, make you doubt who you trust in, make you wonder in the world of your suffering. Cause nigga, I hate you, but I let the way I play. And the beat in your heart, so deal with the rhythm. Revenge tastes sweet, you got a sweet tooth, nigga, me too. Respect the craving for misbehaving. That impulse feeling cling to me and depart from God. I'm that voice inside saying, hell no, we ain't letting that ride. No, I am, I'm a war with God. Let me be your God. Nigga, I'm your pride. Hop aside, I step aside. Nigga, choose tonight. I am none other than unforgiveness. Now let me tend back to my business, my nigga. Deep down in the wells of your soul, remove all them blockages, cause it's messing up your flow. Tap into that place, wash away all the old. Sanitize this space, baptize your face. Time to let that shit go, cause it's all now. It's all now. Time to let that shit go now, you can grow now.
Pointing out what we aren't, but it isn't telling us what we are. We are African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. We were not brought here to enjoy the constitutional gifts that they speak so beautifully about today.
Shalom, shalom. Today we have a very important topic. This is our duty. This is not just my duty to do this. This is your duty as well. This is our duty to unravel the onion for not only for ourselves for freedom, but for the generations that will come after us. Too long, the truth has been shielded. I am your host, Emmanuel Dion. And I give all praises and honor to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for this show and for being here another Tuesday. I didn't have to make it from last Tuesday to this Tuesday. You didn't have to make it to watch this live or to watch this recorded feed. Today, what we're talking about is the mindset of captivity. Why we vote but don't build. Why we vote but we don't build. Now, this isn't something that I'm advocating don't vote. I'm not saying that at all. But as we continue to unravel the onion, let's look at it. And I want you to think about the last election you cared about, right? You turn on the TV, you watch the numbers come in, or you looked at updates on the internet, you stayed up, and maybe with somebody in your family, you maybe argued or avoided their phone call. Right? Maybe you felt something in your chest when a certain state was called. Now, I want you to think about your neighborhood in the next morning, right? Did it change? Did the school change? Did your neighborhood all of a sudden not become a food desert or a food disparity, whichever form that we want to use that makes us feel a little bit better about the situation, right? Did did your bills change or your income, right? Or the court dates for somebody you know, or the block? I don't think a lot of it changed. I think the schools and the grocery store, and if you even have one close by, stayed the same. Your bills, your court dates, and your block stayed the same. All right. So, what we're going to talk about is why that keeps happening. Okay. Why that keeps happening. Not to tell you whether to vote or not to vote. That's not what we're discussing here tonight. Tonight is about a mindset, right? I want you to sit with that word before we go any further. And I want you to digest mindset, because the ballot is not the only thing on trial tonight. We are. So here's the plain truth. Before we go anywhere near the word, most of us already know the system was not built for us, because we know that it wasn't built by us. And we're not the ones asleep. Pew Research asked Black Americans directly, was the political system designed to hold Black people back? 67% said yes. A great deal or a fair amount. 75% said they personally experienced discrimination because of their race. So let me fill you in on how this goes. If this is your first time, welcome. Right? As we continue to go on this journey together and unravel the onion, this may come up. I may put this up here and just leave it up here, because all of this is a community think tank. What I love is not just my mind being put to work, because I'm only one person, but when others contribute their thought process and put that in like a potluck and allow all of us to be able to digest that. Don't be afraid to speak. You have something to say. Your thought process is valid. It is important. We all have wisdom. We just all need to we have to share it, right? We have to share it. This is the link, right? This is the link for you that you can tap into, and you can be a part of the show if you type slowly. There are parts where I'm going to ask questions, and I love for the chat to get busy, right? I love for these things to start moving and get active. Okay. So in addition to that, if you type too slow, what you can do is you can click that link, and you are more than welcome to come and let your voice be heard, because we would love to hear how you want to speak the truth that you understand. All right. So when we look at it, the last statistic that I said was 75% said they personally experienced discrimination because of their race. Right? Say that to yourself in your head. That's two out of three of us already know the game is rigged. 3 out of 4 of us have lived it and not just heard about it, right? That is major. I'm sure we can all say the same thing, that we've seen it, we've heard it be put into place, right? All right. So the problem is not that we're blind. The problem is what we do with what we already see. So here's the disorder in plain sense. We know the system is against us, and we still wait on the same system to save us. See, that's the issue. That's the problem that I'm having. We equate the system to salvation. Our parents have paved it for us, for the system to be our savior and our way out. Now, I'm not saying that some good can't come about from good policies being in place. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the solution has never been back to the base of things that got us here in this predicament in the first place. Right? We're dealing with symptoms and the fruit, but we're not dealing with a root problem. So that is not wisdom. That is bondage thinking that we've been passed down from generation to generation, right? A man in chains who understands exactly who put him there and still waits on the same hand to unlock him, that man, we can safely say, misunderstands his condition. But he has not decided to act like a free man. Voting becomes a ritual of hope instead of a tool in a toolbox every cycle. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Then the votes are counted, and the same streets, schools, fractured homes, and gaps that we see still stand exactly where they were standing before the vote ever took place. So I want to ask you something, and I don't want a fast answer. I want you to actually sit with it before you type it in or before you click the link to speak. Has an election ever actually changed the day-to-day condition of your household? Not the country or the news, your household, your bills, your block, your children's schools, and your family's table. Right? And I know that's a long question, so I'm going to put that in the chat. Has an election ever actually changed the day-to-day condition of your household? All right? Let me know. Let me know what you think. Right? And I want you, whatever answer you give, hold on to that answer. Do not let it go. We're going to come back to this same question later tonight. So lock it in. After you've seen some things you may not have put together yet. And I assure you, by the time we come back to it, it's going to hit different than what it does right now. So let me tell you where this actually started, because it didn't start with you, right? Every election, and I say cycle, not year, because it's not just a presidential race. We're looking at midterms, judges, school boards, the mayor race. We get shown the options that were already approved for us. right? So this is how it works. We see the options that they present to us. They give us A, B, C, D. These are not just free thinking that we get to choose. We have to choose from the options that are laid out for us. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need these things. We need judges of color to be able to balance the scales, right? We need people on the school board. We need mayors. We need these things, right? So I'm not saying that we don't have those things, but we know that as we'll continue to unravel the onion, we know that these things are often conditional for us. And it's a harder uphill battle for us many of the times. We listen to the speeches, we weigh the promises that we're given, we hear who says they care about us, or who says they'll protect our rights, and who says they'll fund our schools, and who says they'll fix our block, and they'll finally hear our pain. And then we choose. After we choose, we wait. We wait for the promise to reach our homes and our blocks and our streets. We wait for that promise to interweave itself within our lives so that we see a difference in our day-to-day life. We wait for the money to reach the school. We wait for the food desert to get an oasis, for the relationship with the police to change, for housing to become fair. We wait for justice to feel normal. And we wait for somebody who needed our vote to actually do what they said that they was going to do in the first place. So cycle after cycle and condition, it stays exactly where it was. Here's the part that's harder to say, so I want you to listen very, very close. Our parents taught us to vote because that's what they were handed to teach. Go vote. People died for the right. And that's true. Who can say that that's not true? And we're not trying to belittle the efforts of people who shed blood and took that blunt end of things. We're not trying to belittle that at all. But don't let anybody in this chat mock that. Blood was shed for the right to vote. Real men and women, they paid for it, they got it in blood. But our parents were not mainly taught Torah. They were not mainly taught land, household order, or food control, inheritance, covenant discipline, nation building. And as we can see the state of our nation, as we can see the young Miamis, as we can see the people in our society that have made their way being rich, doing all manner of evil that we don't think affects us, but it does. When you look at the state of where we were to where we are now, and you trace that, then it's clear to see that the influence that has been placed for us to for our leaders have been our entertainers, have been our jesters, who are actually no leaders at all. Right? So our parents were taught civil access, and they were told civil access was deliverance. That's not a knock on our parents. They were doing the best they had with what they were given, trying to open doors so we wouldn't suffer what they suffered. But hear me, survival teaching is not the same as covenant restoration. We were taught civil rights and not a covenant order, right? We were fighting for equal rights when Deuteronomy 7:6 says we were chosen to be above all people, not equal. So the very thought of being equal is a transgression, is a sin against the Most High. It shows that we don't understand the covenant order of things. We don't understand our rightful place within this inheritance that we've been given. Right? We were taught representation instead of inheritance, and integration and not separation unto holiness. right? Which we are called to be as his people. We were taught how to get into their schools, not how to build our own, how to get a job in this economy, and not how to own land, food, trade, and production, because we don't own the gas. We don't own the oil. We don't own the mass amount of resources connected with this land. And we were never taught and conditioned to place ourselves in position to control them. And even when we do control them, which we have to do on another episode, they're slipped right from underneath our feet. We were taught how to appeal to their courts and not how to judge righteously among ourselves. We were given how to campaign for a leader, not how to become a disciplined father, mother, teacher, builder, farmer, or elder. A vote can give you access to a leader, and Torah teaches you how to become a people and a leader. A vote can put somebody in a seat, while the Torah makes sure that your house is placed in order. A vote may be able to change a policy, while Torah changes a judgment. A vote can promise reform, while Torah commands repentance. So the question tonight is not do we vote or not vote? The question is, why were we trained to put our hope in leaders who break their word while the commandments of the Most High got treated like a side issue, like it doesn't even matter? That is the mindset of a people in captivity. We were trained to look up at a podium instead of looking up to the Most High and looking inward at our own house. And until that changes, every cycle is going to feel like a new beginning. And when we're going to keep waking up the next morning in the same condition. We were given a ballot before we were given our identity. We were taught to choose leaders before we were taught to become a people. Okay? So with that being said, I wonder if this is it. If I got it. If I got it right here. Maybe I got to upload that one. So Dr. Claude Anderson, he did a clip. And within his clip, he talks about, how he was talking to President Clinton, and President Clinton was amazed the black people were rendering the vote without asking them for anything in return. Right? Nothing in return. They were willing to give that vote. Right? So we understand that our people are being used for work donkeys to get done what they need to get done, because we're not enabling the mindset in order to demand something even from the vote. Right? So I want to go down a little bit because of what I'm about to say. And I think I got that clip. So let me pull up that clip right quick. Loaded it. Here we go. Here it is. I got it. He can tell you better than I can tell you.
Quit being the fool. There's an old saying all the time on a farm where you got horses and you got jackasses, and you got a lot of loads to be carried of wood, bricks, rock, dirt to be pulled in a wagon. And somebody say, well, who's going to pull that wagon and haul all that dirt and rocks and bricks away? And the rule is in politics, he who has the willingness ass will always pull the biggest load. Black folk always show up, and like just what you said a few seconds ago, and show up and prove to everybody they're the willingness ass to do anything for any reason and get nothing in return. Mm-hmm. That's why President Clinton told me once, but after having been his political advisor here in Maryland, that he said he was totally surprised that black people were the only people ONLY. Only people that never asked him for a damn thing of any substance. That they were perfectly satisfied if he hired one or two blacks, a black secretary or a black person for this job. And there was no relationship between what that person was going to do for the administration and what he's going to do for black people. And that is a cardinal rule. Get a black person, he'll never ask you for anything except maybe come to a dinner and buy a luncheon ticket or something for NAACP awards. He ain't gonna give you anything. That's why your condition has never changed. And that's why, as I said a few minutes ago, back in the Civil War, that what black folk had in terms of wealth compared to whites, for every white person at that time had possibly about 3,500 times more wealth than the average black. It's still like that. And so what do you plan on getting out of voting? You should say, I'm not against voting. Here's the major point. I'm gonna quite running my mouth. I'm not against voting. I know you're not against voting. It's what are you voting hell for? That's the issue. What are you voting for? You haven't got a pot or a window to throw it out of. What are you voting for?
You're being scammed by the AI industry.
All right. So he made the point really explicit. I mean, he said it super good, super easy, that our condition isn't changing, and that's what I'm getting to. So what my point is here, if when we look at it, we can clearly see voting won't change the condition that the Most High put us in. He put us in this condition, and so his voting is not going to move his hand, right? Just as if you ever got your tail whipped, you know that reaching out back there to grab the belt wasn't going to save your behind. It wasn't going to save them cheeks from getting tapped. Matter of fact, it just might make it a little worse. The best thing you can do is take them licks, get it over with, cry your tears, and then move on and understand why you got your whooping. Right? But us as a people, we continue to remain stubborn, not recognizing who our master is. A donkey, an ass, recognizes who his master is, while Israel, we don't know. All right, let's go to Exodus 8:1. Right, Exodus 8:1. It says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me." All right. So he didn't say, "Let my people go, that Pharaoh may give them a seat at the table." He didn't say, "Let my people go, that they may get fair representation in Egypt's government." He said, "Let them go so that they can serve me." So the goal was never access. It was always service to the Most High, right? It was never to fight for civil inclusion. The goal has always been covenant restoration. So the goal wasn't a vote, even though I'm not speaking against voting, but I am speaking against voting being the solution for the problem. The goal was a people walking in order, judgment, obedience, and land, family and worship, not family worship, but family and worship, inheritance, and righteousness. So when you hear both halves at once, because we have to weigh it, we need both, or you will definitely get this wrong. The lesson is not that our people had no heart. Yeah, they had heart. The lesson is that the heart without the Torah can be redirected. Zeal without covenant, it can be captured and utilized in different directions that are vanity. Why do I say they're vanity? They're vanity because they don't add for our eternal life. They don't change the progression of our children's children, right? Sacrifice, if we aim it at the wrong master, can spin itself building hope in a system that never once intended to restore you. It was never written for you, my nigga. It wasn't written for you. The faster we understand that, the better off we'll be. So that is why we have to be sober now. within this generation with Torah back in our hands. We can honor their sacrifice without inheriting their framework. We honor their sacrifice without inheriting their framework. And I want to make this distinction as well. I'm not saying that we should not be in political positions. I'm not saying that at all. I think the Most High puts people in political positions to be able to sway them and have favor in high places, such as Esther, right? She was a queen, so technically that kind of put her in a political position, right? We also have people like Daniel, right? These people were in high political positions, right? But even these people in high political positions, you know the difference between them and the people we have now? The people we have now have no reliance on the Most High whatsoever. All of their focus and their mindset is zeroed in on the system. When we had Daniel, guess what Daniel did? Daniel was fasting and he would pray on behalf of knowing who Israel is. And he was that person who stood in the gap to save us so that we will be able to continue, you and I. Not just continue, but continue in the ways of the Most High. That's a big difference. And we can say the same thing for Esther. They had the Most High moving on their side. So what's the difference? The difference is that they didn't put all of their faith and hope in the system. They didn't look at the system as being a way of salvation. While our parents tried to put us in the right place and the right framework, I'm sorry, they missed it. While people died and had sit-ins, I'm sorry, they missed it. So while we can utilize the system as a tool and a way of being, it is not the code and the way and the path of salvation. It's just not. All right? A ballot may give us access to the rulers of the age, but the Torah returns us to the ruler of all ages. So what do? We honor their blood, but we do not sanctify the framework that redirected their hope. And I totally get it. When we look at, the system and things of that nature, we can clearly see, right, that a people so downtrodden and over generation and generation, they wanted to have what they didn't have before. But once they possessed it, how much did our condition really change? Right? How much of our condition truly changed? So before we move to what happens when the vote works, we need to put political memory back on the table. Many of our people were taught party loyalty without party history. That's the dangerous part, because a people with no memory can be managed by whatever story is useful this election cycle. And before I continue, let me ask, do your parents maybe put pressure? I don't know if you vote or don't vote. How many of you vote? How many of us vote? Do you believe in the power to vote? What is your stance on that? I know that so many fingers are just moving right now. And so I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to come back. And when I come back to it, to revisit it, I'll go over those answers. All right. So when we look at the Democratic Party, it did not begin as the party of a Black liberation. Its modern form traces back to Andrew Jackson and the rise of the Jacksonian democracy, which expanded political power mainly for white men. The first official Democratic Party convention was held in 1832 for Jackson's supporters. So when people say democracy, we have to ask, for who? Access for who? And rights for who? Remember, we were not considered a man. We were 3/5. We were 3/5. Not a drop of Neanderthal in us, yet we were 3/5. Then, after the Civil War, the South became a battleground over Black political power. Within that era, the Republican Party was tied to Reconstruction and the constitutional amendments that abolished slavery, granted citizenship, and protected Black male suffrage. The Democratic power structure in the South resisted Reconstruction, resisted Black political power, and became tied to segregation, Jim Crow, and the rule of whites, or what I would call a more white supremacy angle. Now we have to make sure that we're not being sloppy with the history, right? The Ku Klux Klan was not officially the Democratic Party, but the Klan was born from former Confederate men and became a terrorist force against Black voters, right? Black office holders and Republican Reconstruction. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that we have been bamboozled. The Democratic Party was not doing us any favors. And when you look at the seed of something, we understand that the seed of something, you cannot change it. It will bear fruit to be whatever it is. I can take an apple seed from here and I can go over to China and I plant that apple seed. Is always going to be an apple tree. 200, 300, 400 years from now, it is not going to trans fruit. Weird. It's not going to do it. It's going to be an apple tree. So T. Matt said, I do not. Nikita said, I voted only once in my life, and that was only because I was pressured to vote for Obama. And even when we look at that, what did Obama do for us? What did he do for us? He did more for the homosexuals than he did for Negroes. This is the truth. All right? So when we look at the history, we know that it matters. The Republican Party, when we look at that history, began in 1850s as an anti-slavery expansion party. So the Republican Party was actually more for us than the Democratic Party was, right? But parties changed coalitions over time. Northern Democrats increasingly embraced civil rights. Southern segregationists lost control of the National Democratic Party, and Republicans gained more white Southern support, right? So it began to transform, right? So it is not a cheap lesson that says Republicans are bad or Democrats are good. The deeper lesson is that both parties have adjusted themselves according to power. So we look at the one party that fought to keep us out, then later learned how to gather our vote. The other party once fought slavery expansion, then later learned how to gather much of the white Southern vote. Right? So there's a crude statement often attributed to Lyndon Johnson and having Black people voting Democratic for generations, right? Where he said he would have them voting Democratic for nations. Now, that is disputed, but it is something that circulates, right? So let's look at some things here. And also I asked, do you believe in the power to vote? Do you believe in the power to vote? So I know we've already gotten to gather the census that we don't really vote. Do you believe in the power to vote? And why or why not? I would love to hear your input. All right. So while you're answering that, because before I go to this next part, I really want to see what you all have to say. While you're doing that, let's go to Psalms 146 and 3. It says, Put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. That's big. So it tells us not to rest our trust within the Son of Man or princes in Psalms 146 and 3. So I'll go ahead and give my answer. Do I believe in the power to vote? Yeah, I believe that there is power in voting. I absolutely do. All right. I believe that there's power to make sure a black judge is on the bench. So maybe we'll have a better chance. Just as well as I think that there's power for a black, not just a black, but a person, a loving black, a pro-black, to be in a police uniform. Because the difference can be drastically, it can be a drastic difference when we're looking at being pulled over, or we're looking at when our life is on the line, when we're looking at being sentenced, so that we're not sentenced more harshly than what we should, especially in comparison to our white counterparts. Right? T-Matt says, I believe in the power of voting, but only of the sense of who are voting for as for the better of the people. Exactly. I would have to agree. Yes, they cater to those who show up to move the vote, both on a small and large scale. Look at everything from the school boards to your local HOA. Absolutely. And then once they get the vote, what do they do? What do they do, or what don't they do? Should I say? That's more like it. What don't they do? Because we vote for them in hopes that they will keep their promise, but then when they don't, then what? We're just stuck in the same predicament. And that's why so many people give up on voting. Voting locally, I would definitely have to say, I do believe has some impact. But is it the overall solution? Absolutely not. It is not the overall solution. When we look at this situation here, I'm going to play this. I'm going to play these few little clips here.
Did minority voters.
We saw a flood after the Shelby decision, a flood of laws designed to make it hard just to show up at polls.
The premise of the Shelby County majority opinion is, well, we don't have all this racism anymore that we used to have in 1965, so we don't need the law that stopped the racism that we used to have in 1965.
That left Section 2 as the remaining safeguard to protect the voice of minority voters. Fast forward to 2023. Another gerrymandering case, Allen versus Milligan, is heard by the Roberts Court, now made up of 6 Republican-appointed and 3 Democrat-appointed justices. With the Voting Rights Act on the line once again, the ruling in Milligan upheld essential parts of Section 2 and struck down a racially gerrymandered map in Alabama. Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Kavanaugh voted with the court's liberal minority.
Because this court, or at least its Republican majority, is so hostile to the Voting Rights Act, I think everyone thought they were going to strike down the anti-gerrymandering provisions, overrule Jingles, allow Alabama to have whatever maps Alabama wanted. And everyone, including me, was shocked when that didn't happen.
I wanted to take a second to thank our Patreon members. We're putting this episode is willing to strike down Section 2, despite the striking similarities to Milligan. This case has been kicking around for a few years before it made it to the Supreme Court, so let me catch you up. In 2022, Louisiana state legislators drew an electoral map called HB 1 that only included one majority black district out of 6 statewide, despite the 2020 census showing that 1/3 of the Louisiana population was black. Civil rights groups and community members sued, and it was decided that they needed a new map with 2 majority black districts to reflect the state's population. The new map, SB 8, passed in the state legislature in 2024, and it seemed like it was over. But a group of non-African American voters claimed SB 8 was unconstitutional because race was the sole reason for the map. They argued because the map was created to fix discrimination against black voters, it was discriminating against white voters. This is Louisiana versus Calais.
And the Calais case wound up being heard by 2 Trump judges. And those Trump judges said that the maps that Louisiana drew were themselves unconstitutional.
After an initial oral argument in March 2025, the Supreme Court heard re-arguments 7 months later.
We will hear argument first this morning in Case 24-109, Louisiana versus Calais.
These arguments were framed around a single question: whether the state's intentional creation of a second majority-minority congressional district violates the 14th or 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution.
This court's cases, in a variety of contexts, have said that race-based remedies are permissible for a period of time, sometimes for a long period of time, decades in some cases, but that they should not be indefinite and should have an endpoint.
If it's going above and beyond what the 15th Amendment requires of its own force, but Congress has actually chosen the Voting Rights Act as a remedy, does that affect the question of whether it can go on indefinitely or not?
I had 2 takeaways from the argument in Calais. One is that the Republican justices are absolutely determined to eliminate the Voting Rights Act racial gerrymandering safeguards. The other thing is that they have no idea how to do it. They couldn't agree on a rationale for why they should do it. They sort of started with the outcome they wanted, and then were tossing out different theories they could use to get to that outcome.
I find it particularly cruel to use 2 amendments that were created to protect Black and other communities of color and women, right, after Reconstruction, to use those 2 amendments to then take away voice and rights from the very people they were created to.
We need stories. We need.
And at the end there, she said that they were created to protect. So this is gerrymandering. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because just as easy that they give you the right, they can move you out of position, right? And I wouldn't say just as easy as they can give you the right, but I will say that they understand that it's a power struggle that they're not willing to give up, right? And when you see that clip, I know maybe y'all probably saw some clips. Are y'all familiar with this gerrymandering that has been going on and the changing of the maps? You saw it really big in Tennessee, saw it really big in Louisiana. Those are 2 big places that the news was covering it. And many people were saying that this reminds them of, the civil rights movement. And want to go to this comment here real quick while y'all ruminate on that. Brianna says, once they're in office, then follow the money if you want to know what's driving the policy. Absolutely, because bribery is legal and it's called lobbying, right? They are allowed to lobby. That's why within your local place, your local towns, Corpus Christi, if they don't change something, they're going to be the first city in America that runs out of water. Why? Because there's a corporation there. These people that are in power, these people that are in leadership are easy to compromise, right? That's why these data centers are popping up against the will of the people in a lot of different cases, right? And draining the city of its resources. Nikita says, that's exactly what I see. They become puppets and follow the money and forget all about their promises because they never really had the intention to keep their promises in the first place. They had their intention to get in office because they want to be wealthy. I believe that it is a large, for many of them, I'm not going to make this an absolute, but I will say for many of them to get paid by lobbyists. They want the bribe money, right? Lobbyists pay very well. Okay. So because this is one of the clearest ways to understand the limit of voting inside someone else's structure. A lot of people think voting is simple. People vote, they're counted, and whoever gets the most support wins. But before the people ever vote, somebody has already drawn the boundaries around the people. That is redistricting. And when those boundaries are drawn to control the outcome, that is gerrymandering. Sometimes they pack us. That means they force as many black voters as possible into one district so that one district becomes overwhelmingly black while our influence is weakened everywhere else. They try to take that power. They don't want it spread out. They try to pack it into one place. They pack it into one place and then they shove it in a corner. And sometimes they crack us. And what that means, they split black communities across multiple districts. So we are never concentrated enough to elect the representative our community would have chosen if we were kept together. So they're able to shift and move us according to what they see fit. So when some people say just vote, we have to ask, vote inside what map? Because what the map decides, it decides whether your vote speaks clearly, whether it gets trapped, or whether it gets completely diluted. And this is happening right now. In 2026, after the Supreme Court weakened protection tied to the Voting Rights Act, Southern states began moving quickly to redraw congressional maps. Louisiana moved to eliminate one of its majority black districts, and Tennessee moved around Memphis. Alabama's maps were also caught in the same post-ruling fight. So if we look at the pattern, the people vote, the maps change, the people organize, then the district gets split. The people gain representation, then the boundary gets redrawn. So they're always moving the ground underneath our feet. This is why I'm saying this is not, you have to see these things as being fallible, right? As being just as flawed as the men who have constructed them to be. And then the people finally gather enough strength in one place. After that, the law says that gathering was drawn with too much attention to race. They say it's too much. They use the same argument. They made these amendments to help prevent the bias and the unfair treatment against blacks. And then they say, well, you shouldn't use this because now you're saying that this is race-based, is based on black. So we should remove it. So the policy that we put in to prevent racism is racist, and we should remove it so that we can have racism. That's exactly what's happening. And this is the thing that we have to make sure that we understand. Ain't nobody trying to come in equal in no damn race. Get your head out your ass. A race, people are looking to be number one. The faster we understand that, the better off we will be. And once again, the system controls the field. That is why I keep saying voting is not sovereignty. It's not your salvation. Because sovereignty means you control the land, laws, boundaries, judgments, food. You control inheritance and the order that the household is in. As we did a previous episode, they even want to change the order of the household, and that's why they're pushing this homosexual agenda. Because they want to make sure that if you ever speak about it, that they've already conditioned and brainwashed your children enough to where they will turn on you for being a bigot, for being XYZ. Without the proper the borders and boundaries in place, you become susceptible to the things that society puts in front of you to draw you away from being rooted in your own inheritance and having control over your own household. Back to this. But if somebody else draws the line around your neighborhood or your city, your district, right, around your political voice, then your vote is operating inside of their boundary. And you do not have control. You don't have the control that you think you have. It's an illusion. So that does not mean voting has no use. Not saying that. It means the map is part of the power. If we don't understand that, we'll keep thinking we lost because we did not show up, when sometimes the field was redrawn before you ever arrived. And that's why I continue week after week to point us back to Torah, to point us back to the writings of our forefathers, the writings that teach the entire earth, right? The most famous writings on the face of the planet was written by our ancestors. So they understood boundaries and inheritance, and they understood land. They understood not moving ancient landmarks, because whoever controls the boundary controls the inheritance. That is why gerrymandering is in plain language, moving the boundary so the inheritance of political power does not fall where the people actually are. So do not just ask, did you vote? We have to ask deeper questions. Who drew the map? Who split the people? Who packed the district? Who erased the seat? Who moved the line? Because if your vote can be weakened by a line on a map, then your condition can be restored by voting alone. The ballot may count your voice, but the map can decide how much your voice is allowed to matter. The game is always being moved. The pieces on the board are always being moved. Man. I want to go back to this.
We say so-called Negro, that's pointing out what we aren't. Negro, that's pointing out what we aren't, but it isn't telling us what we are. We are African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. We were not brought here to enjoy the constitutional gifts that they speak so beautifully about today. When we say so-called Negro.
So, I totally get what he's saying. And I believe that we've forgotten. I believe that we have forgotten. We've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten where we stand, right? And we have made the system be our solution. We have made the jobs be our solution. We have made the education be our solution. We have made our financial status be our solution. But as you can tell, the financial status, when we look at athletes and celebrities, even when we look at our Oprahs and our movie stars, right? Their financial status has changed drastically. But what can we say honestly, morally, where they stand? Have they helped our condition get better? Or have they been in a place where they have been more so pacified. When we look at these elections, Dr. Claude Anderson says we pull the wagon, right? We pull the wagon through turnout and through campaigning, defending candidates, through arguing with our own people. We pull the wagon through fear. If you don't vote for this person, the other side will destroy us. And that is what we are fed year or cycle after cycle. But then after the wagon moves, we have to ask, what's in it for us? Did we get land? Do we control the food or the schools? All right. So we've been talking about voting and representation, promises, leaders, parties, and political access. But underneath all that is a philosophy. And if the philosophy is wrong, the action that comes from it will also be wrong. Right? That's why listening to Malcolm X clearly, right? Malcolm is teaching that once the philosophy changes, the thought pattern changes. Once the thought pattern changes, the attitude changes. And once the attitude changes, the behavior changes. And once the behavior changes, the actions follow. So when he talks about what he was talking about within the clip, he's bringing it back to who we are, the so-called Negro, right? Without us having an identity written, anything can be placed in. Anything can be placed in. I want to play this clip. I believe this is my last clip here, but I want to play this one more 1 minute clip from Malcolm X.
Boy. Once you change your philosophy, you change your thought pattern. Once you change your thought pattern, you change your attitude. Once you change your attitude, it changes your behavior pattern. And then you go on into some action. As long as you got a sit-down philosophy, you'll have a sit-down thought pattern. And as long as you think that old sit-down thought, you'll be in some kind of sit-down action. They'll have you sitting in everywhere. It's not so good to refer to what you're going to do as a sit-in. That right there castrates you. Right there it brings you down. What goes with it? Think of the image of someone sitting. An old woman can sit. An old man can sit. A chump can sit. A coward can sit. Anything can sit. Well, you and I have been sitting long enough, and it's time today for us to start doing some standing and some fighting to back that up.
All right, so what he's talking about is the people who have been trained in a posture of passivity, right? A people can be angry and still passive. They can vote, but vote does not mean you're active. It means you're still passive. We can complain and still be passive, and march and still be passive. If the end goal is only to be accepted by the same structure that holds them down. That's why this clip is very important. Our people have been sitting for a long ass time. We have been sitting through election cycles, through campaign promises, through speeches, representation without restoration. We have been sitting through symbolisms without substance, through access without any ownership, through leaders who ask for our vote but never return with land, food, schools, inheritance, family order, or real repair, are doing something about these damn police killing our people. So the question becomes, what philosophy produced that? If the philosophy is wait for the right leader and then act, if our philosophy is vote and hope, then our action will be voting and hoping. If our philosophy is somebody in office is going to save us, then the action behind that philosophy will be dependency. And if our philosophy is access is deliverance, then our nation will stop at access and never reach the pinnacle of deliverance. But this is why I bring us back to the writings, because Torah does not train us to sit down. It trains us to stand before the Most High, to stand in judgment, order, and to stand over our households, our children, our food, our labor, inheritance, and worship. So what Malcolm X did that was so pertinent within that clip is he diagnosed the posture and the philosophy. And then Torah, it gives the correction and the way forward. So the mind has to change before the behavior changes. We know that it has to be in the dark before it comes to the light. So the behavior has to change before your condition ever changes. In Genesis 1, we know that darkness precedes light, but the presence was still there before the light was ever given. So within the darkness, the plan has to be developed. And then within the darkness, our minds, our hearts, then it is time to move. It is not time to keep begging somebody to change. That is why this episode is not just about voting. The episode is about the mindset of captivity. Because when you have a captive mindset, it only means fear, right? And sometimes a captive mindset looks like hope placed in the wrong place. And it can get comfortable, right? It may look like loyalty to a party, or waiting on a leader, or believing that because someone gave you a ballot, they gave you power, right? Power without land is limited. Without law is limited. Without food is limited. Without family order, without inheritance or obedience, and power without the Creator is no power at all. You're living in the meta world. Those glasses they put on when they live in a virtual world, you're not living in a real place. You're living in the delusion that makes you comfortable. So after this clip, we have to ask ourselves plainly, are we still sitting? Are we sitting inside a political philosophy that trained us to wait? Or inside our parents with their framework of civil rights without moving or testing the fruit? Are we sitting inside party loyalty while our community remains broken? Inside ideologies that's not moving the needles for us? And are we sitting there thinking and calling it power with putting our hopes in a different place? Psalms 146:3, let's read that one more time. It says, but put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. We are a spiritual people. One of the things that we have to understand, even when we look at Malcolm X and we look at Martin Luther King, no matter if you agree with their rhetoric or not, our power has always been in our mouth. We can make a world move. We can make Chinese rap, meaning we can make Chinese people spit a rhyme. We can make them mimic our behavior. We get fades, everybody wants fades. We sag, everybody want to sag. So what does that mean? That our power is not within the sword. Our power is in our intellect and in our mouths. So if they hijack the intellect and then they hijack the mouth, then that's our power. Our power is in our speech and how we come to the Most High, how we worship and how we pray to Him, right? And it's important to note what I'm saying when I say pray. I'm not saying praying without action. I'm not saying to be docile with prayer, but we cannot negate that prayer moves the Most High on our behalf. because what that does is it connects us with the real power. We have all of this inkling to go to a system and to vote to this system. And within a legal framework, that is when we put forth a petition to a judge, it's called a prayer. I deal with legalities all the time. And you must present a prayer before the judge. That tells me that this system understands something very principal that we miss. Our prayer has been directed in the wrong direction for a long time. These other powers will not save you. It is the creator of heaven and earth is the real judge that we must put our prayer in front of so that our situation begins to shift. Let's go to 1 Samuel 8 and 11. And I'm going to read that through 18. And he said, "This will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen. And some shall run before his chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands, and captains over fifties, and will set them to ear his ground, and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war, and instruments of his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be confectionaries, to be cooks, and to be bakers. And he will take your fields, and your vineyards, and your oliveyards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. And he will take the tenth of your seed and of your vineyards, and give to his officers and to his servants. And he will take your men servants and your maid servants and your goodliest young men and your asses, and put them to his work. He will take the tenth of your sheep, and ye shall be his servants, and ye shall carry out in that day because of your king, which ye shall have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear you in that day." So we were never supposed to be a people who had such a king resurrected over us, let alone a Gentile, right? It was always supposed to be us. So here's what I need you to catch. Israel got exactly what they asked for. The political structure changed, and a king sat on the throne. And it did not deliver them from bondage thinking, because the problem was never just the structure. The problem was a heart that wanted covering without correction. A people who wanted somebody else to carry what they were supposed to carry themselves. That is the warning sitting underneath tonight's entire episode. A change in who rules does not automatically produce a change in a people's condition. Israel found that out the hard way, and so have we. So don't misread that. Torah does not say rulers don't matter. Let's go to Deuteronomy 17 and 18. And I'm going to read that through 20. Deuteronomy 17 and 18. "And it shall be when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom that he shall write him a copy of this law and a book out of that which is before the priests of the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of his law and these statutes to do them. That his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in the kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel." So even a king was bound to the same Torah as everybody else. So rulership matters, and who sits in the office is not just nothing. But we know that we don't have a ruler who is abiding by these ways. But rulership was never designed to replace obedience. A righteous ruler under Torah is a blessing. A ruler of any color, any party, was never designed to be the thing that saves a people from their own disorder. Let's go to Proverbs 14 and 34. "Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. The king's favor toward a wise servant, but his wrath is against him that causes shame." So when we look at verse 34, it says, "Righteousness exalteth the nation, but sin is a reproach to any people." Not political parties or candidates who won or righteousness. right? And we can see the more wicked our ruler is, our life changes drastically. Look at our gas prices. Look at us at war. Look at what's going on. But these things must come to pass for the second coming of the Messiah to come, right? So let's look at the mindset of this in a couple of layers, right? I want to get ready to wrap it up. One, representation without reconstruction, right? Representation can matter, but representation is not restoration. A face in a high seat is not the same thing as a house in order. Number two, protest without structure. A people can protest their way into order, and protest can expose oppression. Only structure builds a nation. We have number three, consumer identity over covenant identity, right? So that's one of the more difficult ones. A lot of us have been taught by the culture around us and not by Torah. We have been taught to be consumers. We have not been taught to be covenant. We've been taught that it's consumer or producer, not consumer identity or covenant identity. We've been taught consumer identity or producer identity. So to measure how free we are by what we can buy, wear, drive, stream, post, or by the income that we make is not freedom. That is still captivity with better clothing or packaging on it. Okay? So it's important to see these things and to know. And number four, we have political loyalty without covenant accountability. Right? So let's go to... Let me copy and paste this real quick. Let me copy this. So which of the four do we think is the hardest one for our people? And I'm sorry, I should have been like this the whole time. Ain't nobody tell me nothing. So which one of these four, and I'm gonna label out the four again. Give me 1 second. One, we have representation. We have this one. Representation without reconstruction. Number two, we have protest without structure. Number three, we have consumer identity. And number four, let me pull it up here. And number four, we have political loyalty without covenant accountability. Which one do you think is crack cocaine to our people? All right. This is such a large topic. I had to skip much of it. Right? So I asked a question at the very beginning. And I told you to hold on to it. And I'm going to put it back in here. Now that we narrowed down towards the end of our segment for today. And the question is, has an election ever actually changed the day-to-day condition of your household? So we got two questions. I know that's all right. Because I just know it. that we are working out these two answers. So y'all go ahead and do y'all thing. You know, I'm in this talking mode. I done got juiced up. Now. So I'm gonna continue with some of my closing charge. So what I'm not here to do is to tell you to vote or not to vote. I'm not trying to influence you one way or another. I'm asking you so much a harder question. After the vote is counted, whichever way it goes, are you still in the same condition you were before? That's the question that we posed at the very beginning, right? We know that when we look at the Torah, right? And why do I keep saying Torah? Let me make this a reminder for those who have, maybe this is your first time watching, maybe you've never seen this. Torah is the legal framework in which the entire Bible is built upon. All of the rest of the Bible, once you Deuteronomy end, then we see how people live up to the Torah or they fall short of it. In either way, we get taught a very good lesson. Because if you've ever seen a person who's older, and with this person who's older, they may not be the best example. Them not being the best example is kind of the teaching point. Ironically, I would kind of dare to say maybe them not being the best example can be a good example of what not to do, right? So either way you fall, you learn a lesson. You learn, I don't want to do that, and I do want to do that. So once Deuteronomy ends, then we see how the rest of the people live. Coming out of Deuteronomy, in the book of Joshua, we have a man named Achan. Achan steals Babylonish garments, right? When he steals these garments, he's told not to take anything from Babylon, right? He's told not to do it. He does it anyways. He hides it underneath his tent, right? And so the children of Israel, they go to war. They begin losing this war. And they're not understanding why, because they always win because they're obedient to the Most High. The only time they lose is when sin has entered. And that goes to show you how we are responsible for one another, because one man's sin, unknown to the rest of the camp, caused people to die. It caused them to begin losing the war. And we are losing the war on such a broad scale because of the same exact thing. I digress. He steals this garment. So Joshua and the elders, they rip their clothes. They go to the Most High and they say, well, why? What's going on? You know? And the Most High says, get up. You got sin in the camp. Figure it out. So they make their way to Achan, the sages say, by way of Lot. And lots are like this dice, or, that the Most High has control over how they land and fall. Not exactly, how they did it, but lots, right? Comes on Achan. Achan says, finally, he confesses that, yeah, he took him. They had no choice but to stone him. But when they stone him, they don't just stone him. They stone him, his children, and his wife. Now, if you don't know the law, if you're not familiar with it, you will say, man, that sure was harsh. Why did they kill the whole family? Well, they killed the whole family because Leviticus 19:17 through like 18 or 19 says, rebuke thy neighbor and suffer them not to sin. So because they saw it and did not say anything, they became complicit with the exact same thing. Therefore, the punishment that came on the father also came upon them, right? But if you don't know the law after reading, it does not tell you that. The Bible expects for you to know it already. Just like if you go to 6th grade, your teacher is already expecting for you to know everything that you learned in 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, kindergarten. Everything that came before it, your teacher is expecting for you to know it once you enter that grade level. The Bible does the exact same thing. It expects for you to be familiar with the laws. So when things are happening, you understand why they're happening. So Torah does not judge a tree by its campaign speech. It judges a tree by the fruit. So when we look at the fruit, look at your own house, look at your hands, and ask yourself honestly whether you have spent more energy hoping in an election than you have spent building an inheritance and understanding who you are in the Most High. Okay? So the ballot, it is not against us, but we have to understand it is not our deliverance either. Not to say that through the system, the Most High can't move and do things, but we must understand and recognize it is the Most High moving and doing things. When we look at, even like I said before, stories like Esther and Daniel, one of the things that we understand, it's easy to look back and be able to color these stories in a certain light because how they're given us. But once you're living it, you don't see that. I can't say I know Esther knew that she was going to be written into history forever. It was an outcome that was unclear to her. How do we know? Because she asked the people to fast before she went before the king because she didn't know whether she was going to live or die here long afterward. So this week, what I want you all to do is pick one area from Deuteronomy 28, mind, family, food, land, or economy, and take one concrete physical step toward order in that area. Right? Open up your Bibles. Whether you start in Deuteronomy 28, which a lot of our condition is there, it speaks to our condition. I did a comparison analysis within Claude, and I asked Claude for a comparison analysis on this very thing. And I asked to do a comparison analysis, and it said we had a striking similarity to what was there. So that is what I encourage. All right. So this has been Unraveling the Onion. I am Emmanuel Dion. This has been a fantastic build with you all. And I want to hear from you all before we get ready to, leave out. What are some things that you saw in the episode or you saw that you would like to add or speak to? I'll give us a few moments because I know I didn't have as many community think tank questions as I would like to have had. Can you relate to this? Can you see some truth in what was being said? What are your thoughts? We are open for a discussion. All right. All right. So I don't see anybody chiming in. With that being said, please tune in next week on Unraveling the Onion. We got some really great episodes lined up, some really strong episodes. We definitely need people to help us with promotion, shorts, things of that nature. If you can yield a hand, definitely you can hit us up at unravelingtheonion@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. We could use more of a team research, helping with marketing and promotions. Just everybody doing a little bit will help this go a lot further. Please like, share, and subscribe to the station channel if you have not. And thank you all so much. I'm Emmanuel Dion, and this has been a fantastic build with you all. I hope you all have a good week, and Most High bless. May the Most High bless you all, and may your eyes be open to see. Shalom.